And welcome back to Soaring Profits. This is a little bit different. This is going to be aired on Tuesday at 11. It's going to be, this is an exciting thing. This is close to home in our little town. Right now, we're having a mayor election. And so we reached out to all the mayor candidates in hopes that we could talk to them all. Unfortunately, due to the time restraints that most mayors have, trying to get, the candidates have trying to get elected, not a lot of them could reach back to us. One did. Brian Lumsden said, "I'm extremely busy winding down this campaign. I'm moving forward with an action plan to clean up downtown, and I'm excited to get it started. If I am voted in, then it will indicate to me that the citizens of Peterborough have had enough and are ready to take action. Cheers." The other person that was right away got back to us is the man you see before us, Jeff Leal. He is born and raised in Peterborough. He has been helping Peterborough for more years than I've been around in Peterborough. He was an MPP. You might know him from the Liberal Party. I believe he had 2 runs as MPP.
15 years. 4 terms.
15 years, 4 terms of MPP. He's worked on the GO Transit, like bringing in the GO Transit bus, Peterborough Regional Health Center, the Cancer Center, Kawartha Trade and Technology Center, Trent University Science Complex, Peterborough Airport expansion, 407 extension. It goes on and on and on and on. And the fact that he took time out of his busy schedule, like he's getting ready for so many things right now, to come and talk to us is also a testament to how he feels about small business, because that's what we are. We're a small business here in the city that he is planning on being mayor in. And the fact that he took a break just warms my heart and goes to show a lot about what he plans on doing in the future. I know that you're very interested in our economic structure right now. Like, I know that families are hurting and struggling. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you're thinking for the future of Peterborough when you become mayor.
Well, first of all, James and Patrick, thank you so much for allowing me to join with you today. And James, thank you for reciting a bit of a list there. But I must say, honestly, you don't ever complete those things without working for others in collaboration and cooperation. That's just the way it is. And in public life, you always got to remind yourself that you truly do stand on the shoulders of others, that as you keep moving forward, you do, build on what people have done before you. And that's certainly my case. With regards to the economic base, there's no question that Peterborough needs to acquire more employment lands, which means negotiating in good faith from a fairness perspective with some of our neighbors to acquire not only employment lands, but lands that can be used for housing. And it's pretty important to me that, that the next generation gets an opportunity to work, live, and prosper right here in Peterborough. And they want to make the same kind of contribution that I had the privilege of doing, and my parents before me. So, that's what I'm looking at positive ways to make that happen. Also, I think it's very important that the Peterborough Kawartha Economic Development Agency be given more resources to promote Peterborough, not only on a national basis, but an international basis. Excuse me. I mean, we compete with 443 other municipalities in the province of Ontario. We compete with other provinces and territories, but with NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, we compete with everybody in North America. That's the lay of the land, right. And you always must be able to put your best foot forward and talk about the advantages you have to offer. Very few communities have the kind of advantages that we have. We're blessed to have a university with a national, international reputation, a college, national, international reputation, a regional airport, and a regional healthcare center. So,
Right.
those are four important public pillars that you can build a private sector economy on. And there's a lot of business entities that would choose Peterborough because those are very important assets.
Right. So, Jeff, if I may, you brought up a really great topic there in regards to the airport that we've watched. Over I'm kind of a younger demographic than you gentlemen, as he chokes on his coffee. No, so I'm 35 years old, just turned 36 here a while ago, and I've watched our regional airport here turn into something pretty profound. And I look at other municipalities and other regions in the area in the province, such as like Waterloo.
Yes.
And what they were able to do with their airport, and then being able to attract international business, i.e. Google, Facebook, these large entities that were then able to relocate to these tech centers. Do you think, and obviously you've been paramount through this process in looking at the airport process in Peterborough, do you think that there is something that allows us through that airport, an international structure that we could be the next opportunity for some of these larger companies?
Well, absolutely, because I had the opportunity to work with Flying Colors, which are a big player in Canada's aviation industry and on an international basis. They take aircraft that people have purchased or leased, and of course they customize the aircraft to suit the customer's needs. And that's a company. I know the family very well that operated, the Gillespie family. They've expanded and expanded and expanded, and they've become one of the real anchors of Peterborough Regional Airport. Another entity I was involved with down there was Seneca College when they brought their flight training program to Peterborough a number of years ago. I had the opportunity to visit Buttonville Airport. I was there on that particular day with members of the Sifton family who own Buttonville Airport. And the Sifton family had made a decision, just because of the location of Buttonville Airport, that there'd be a higher value in terms of commercial and residential development. And over a period of time, they've been winding that airport down. And it was the home of the Seneca Aviation program. So David Agnew, who is the president of Seneca College, we reached out to Mr. Agnew to make the case that with the expansion of Peterborough Regional Airport, and the fact is Buttonville was going to cease to exist down the road, that it would be a good idea to move that aviation school to Peterborough, which they did. Right. And in 2014, we had the official opening, and it attracts students from right across the nation to come to Peterborough. So that's a very important anchor of the airport. Full credit to Scott Stewart and his aviation business. He now flies, I believe, 737 jets out of Peterborough for special flights to a specific destination. And of course, there'd be a lot of people just choose that Peterborough Airport because of convenience. So we could see that the airport is playing a larger role in the regional economy as we move down the road. A couple of things that I've talked about. There is a need for a control tower. They do not have a control tower at Peterborough Regional Airport. Whether it's an automated control tower or an in-person control tower, that would be a decision to be made by the experts in the aviation field. But having a control tower would allow an improvement in safety in terms of adverse weather conditions. And secondly, there's a need to reinstate a customs clearinghouse at Peterborough Regional Airport. If people are bringing in goods and services and they need to get customs clearance, it'd be a lot more efficient to have an office located there. I'm told now they have to wait for someone to come from Trenton to drive all the way up to Peterborough before they can get appropriate clearances of international goods and services coming into the airport.
Right. So, Jeff, a little bit about me on that. I had a business when I was a young man where I was importing and exporting goods in and out of the country.
Sure.
And I can tell you firsthand that Peterborough is a uniquely geographical problematic nation, part of the province of doing that.
Yes.
So, okay, so you have a great experience in dealing with the provincial entity. You've obviously dealt in the federal entity with some of your experience with negotiating NAFTA, and now we're looking at a municipal run for yourself. With your experience, how are you able to tie those parties together, get everyone invested around the table, and come to terms to be able to implement something like that? I would argue that the average Peterborean is largely unaware of how much of a solution that could be.
Well, it's interesting. When I was a little child, I grew up in the south end of Peterborough, so we would go out on a Sunday drive. We would go down to Peterborough Airport, which in those days was just kind of operated by Harry Oakman. It was a bit of a dirt runway strip, but it was interesting to see. It's kind of fascinating when you're a young child to see planes take off and land. And Harry Oakman, to his credit, he used to live down on Cameron Street in the south end of Peterborough, and he had a float plane tied up at his dock on the Otonabee River. And he was quite famous for taking aerial photographs and turning them into postcards.
Oh, okay.
There's a whole series of what is called Peterborough postcards. And if you could find one of them, there's still some of them around, but it would be an aerial photograph by Mr. Oakman. And then he would use the printing process to put it on these unique Peterborough postcards. So you can see how it is expanded from there. And I believe, has great potential for the future, particularly in our strategic location between Pearson and the island, Kingston, and Ottawa Airport.
Right. Yeah.
We have the ability to. We don't have time curfews like they have at the Oshawa Airport because Oshawa Airport is very close to residential development. Whereas Peterborough Regional Airport, there's quite a buffer between residential buildup.
Yeah. So they can what you mean is they can send planes out any day or night because they're not going to affect.
Well, I don't know whether this is the case or not, but for a while, General Motors were landing parts at Peterborough Airport, offloading them, putting them in the trucks to take them up to Oshawa Assembly, part of the just-in-time inventory, because they couldn't land parts planes in the Oshawa Airport after 10 o'clock at night, I believe.
Wow.
Well, Jeff, I think that actually kind of beautifully rolls into another part of the question here on the economic structure that we need here in Peterborough, is that, we're looking at global supply chain issues.
That's right.
We're looking at kind of the decimation of just-in-time delivery and supply. How now with the technology, 3D printing, new technologies that are coming, how is Peterborough going to be able to be ready for that next phase, that next infrastructure push, that next, Internet 3 that we're, everything that's coming down right now? What is Peterborough setting itself up for the future and the development that needs to be developed now, the infrastructure, so that we're in a situation where 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, we're going to have jobs for those Trent and Fleming graduates that are coming out of our community?
A great question. I think one of the, if there's any silver lining in the COVID pandemic, which had terrific, significant impacts on us all, was that we seriously come to question this whole global supply chain network, just-in-time inventory. And I think what you're going to see over the next number of years, a real kind of introspective approach that you're going to see more and more people looking for a domestic supply chain, understanding that, if there's another pandemic, which, many people say, probably is going to happen, the laws of probability. So I think you're going to see major business entities looking to shorten the supply chain and going back to more and more domestic suppliers. I mean, we've seen the challenges here in Canada where we couldn't produce N95 masks.
Mhm.
We didn't produce vaccines, and we were, depending on basic thing, the antibiotic base ingredients that were manufactured in India. And when
Mhm.
the global supply chain broke down, none of this was available for the Canadian domestic market, or for that matter, United States too. So I think there's going to be a real inward search about building up a domestic capacity again in many key strategic areas. And I think medical supplies certainly is going to be one of them.
So, Jeff, as well, going on to that, if we're going to set ourselves up here in Peterborough, obviously, since over the last number of years, we've had Hydro One take over Peterborough Hydro,
right?
And the infrastructure that is going to need to be bolstered in that area. From
Right.
what I understand, is that there is substantial work that needs to be done to bring that up to an infrastructure level that is going to be conducive to the plans that you're very clearly articulating. What can we do now from a municipality level to be able to tie those two relations together, partner with them? I don't know exactly the Hydro One deal. You likely are able to educate us a little bit more on that and what that means for the municipality going forward.
Well, Patrick, good question. I do know a little bit about it. And one of the commitments they made when they acquired the poles and lines business of Peterborough Utility Service is that they committed to set up a regional center here in Peterborough.
Okay.
That hasn't come to fruition as of yet. I understand that they're working on it, but that's certainly something that needs to be accelerated going forward to get that established. Because again, as I talked about, Trent, Fleming, PRHC, Peterborough Regional Airport, the fifth pillar may be the Hydro One Regional Center.
Right.
Again, it draws interest to one's community, and that's fundamentally how people make business investment decisions.
Right.
You mentioned community, and I'm going to change gears. I'm not really into the business stuff, and this stuff is. You're absolutely right. A lot of the problems I'm about to mention will be solved when we can bring in business. Like, I know we've lost.
Yeah, I mean, James, the fundamental thing is you need to grow the economy to solve other issues.
That's right. And we lost 2 or 3 major businesses recently. That has caused some problems, like GM down in Oshawa, which Peterborough was a staple for Peterborough work, and GE most recently has pretty much is done as far as I know. But so I've just been noticing in Peterborough, and I know that that's part of what you've been talking about during your campaign. We have a threefold problem. We have drugs have been a major issue, and not just the drugs of our, like my day when I was a kid, weed and stuff like that. These are hardcore drugs that you only I've never been touched by them. I've never even thought of them before recently, and people are on it, and we have ODs. People OD quite often. The homelessness problem has, like, we used to have like a core group of people that were homeless, and but now it seems like everywhere you go, there's someone who is struggling with homelessness, and that's partially linked with drugs, but it's also majorly linked with, in my experience, with mental health. And it seems to me that our mental health in Peterborough, maybe in other places, but I know about Peterborough. Our system, unfortunately, right now seems to be that when someone has a major breakdown of some kind downtown, they get taken away by ambulance, rightly so, to a safe spot. They're held for a short period of time, and then they're released back into the community without supports and without a plan of action. And I know it's hard because they're adults, and you can't say you have to do this. But I know you've been talking about this stuff, and I think that's like one of our major issues right now is this whole mental health, homelessness. And it's not just homeless people that are suffering from mental health right now. There is like a wide range of people that go to work every day that are struggling right now with addiction and mental health. What kind of plans are you kind of thinking that you might be able to? I know it's a complicated issue, can't solve it in 5 minutes, but do you have some ideas moving forward?
Yeah, in 2021, there was 44 people in the city and county of Peterborough that died because of overdose. I mean, it's a heart-wrenching story. Impacts many families. The situation, is there's, all of a sudden there's an empty chair at the dinner table type thing.
Yeah.
The drug issue is a North American problem.
Yes.
Years ago, probably when I was growing up, you could identify probably in a community like Peterborough the 3 or 4 people that were responsible. Now, it's a North American problem, and it's certainly challenging to our police forces to stop the flow. And as we all know, people who are in the business come up with very detailed ways that they move this stuff across borders, international borders, provincial borders, and it gets into one's community.
Right.
A couple of things, I think. I certainly think we need treatment beds. In the spring of this year, Sault Ste. Marie got $18 million to develop 20 treatment beds. One of the views in the medical field is that you got to try to get the person off the substance in order to start the road to recovery. And we do know that road to recovery can be a short period of time, or it can be for one's whole life. I mean, I think of alcoholism, that you struggle with that for your entire time of your life. It truly is a lifelong struggle, a lifelong journey, and you need supports along the way. Others, it can be a more short-term situation. So I think treatment beds are part of it. A more robust investment in our community partners. And remember that each individual has their own story.
Yep.
And ultimately, you need to look at an individual treatment plan for that individual to get on the path, the road to recovery. Also, you got to look at a roof over a person's head. And many people would say the number one thing is get someone a shelter first, somewhere that's under the cold, a warm climate, and then you start the road to recovery.
Yeah.
About a month ago, I went to a presentation at Grace United Church talking about tiny homes. I happen to think that offers some potential. There is a company in Las Vegas called Boxabl. If you look at under Google, Boxabl, it is kind of the one step up from the tiny home. It's construction. All the materials come in a box. It goes on site and you build it. It's about 375 square feet, and it's designed to withstand severe weather conditions. There is a city in Germany called Ulm, ULM. They have developed sleeping pods that are designed to withstand, again, bad weather conditions. But what makes them unique is that there's individuals, for psychological reasons, for physical reasons, don't want to go into a standard shelter system. So these sleeping pods provide them with an alternative. And in this community of Ulm, they got rid of all the individuals who are homeless and living in tents. So it is clear to me that the status quo is not acceptable. So it really is a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
So Jeff,
go ahead.
So Jeff, with that being said, there obviously needs to be a municipal role in that, or is that something that you're thinking is more like private-public partnership process, or that they would be taking on more of that role?
Yeah, I mean, I think all three levels of government need to be involved, and it may be when you look at tiny homes to acquire a piece of land, and that's when the private sector could play a role. And look, there's many generous business people that would see this as a very worthy thing to be involved with.
Right.
Peterborough is just a warm community, and when it comes to it, like during our storm, everyone helped each other out. When the power was out, the food lines, trying to get food and stuff like that, everyone was so generous to each other.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely right. I just want to get back to the homeless thing. I absolutely agree with you. Like, I think that they have a multitude of problems. They're a whole person. You can't just solve one problem, but to find a home first, to have that safety, that feeling of a place to stay that no one's going to remove you from.
Yeah.
That's the core of starting the next step.
Look at a G7 country. You can't have people living in bus shelters in the middle of January. Just doesn't work.
No.
Okay,
and
so I'm going to push back.
They're going to want to seek help. From there, they want to seek help because, once you have a stable. Sorry, Pat, I'm cutting you off. But once you have a stable place to live, it's just like us. Once we have a stable home, a place that we can rent, you can launch from that and you can start making recovery. You can start like seeking out people that will guide you to better mental health. Maybe you can get better drugs, not drugs off the street. I mean, like prescription drugs to help you with things like depression or any of those. But without a home, it's hard to make those decisions because you don't know where you're going to sleep, eat, or do it in a 24-hour period. You don't know what you're going to do. So why would you go seek help? Your best bet, you kind of lean towards other things.
That's right.
So I totally agree. And I'm glad that that's a system. Fortunately, this week, actually, now that you're talking about it, I met a young woman. I came out of church and one of the tiny homes were there. And I talked to this woman named Patty. And she was kind of just showcasing the tiny home. And she's going to be talking with us Thursday night. I'm excited to hear a little bit about it. I think it's a great program. I think it's going to be right down across from the Home Depot. That land there. I think that's what they were talking about, placing it. Now, do you know, are you thinking that Peterborough will help make more of those?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I was saying, I think there's several kind of units that would be acceptable. That finding an appropriate place of land and remember, each person that's in a tiny home will need the appropriate supports to come forward. There's 3 communities that I'm aware of across Canada: one in Kitchener, one in Kingston, and one in Fredericton. And from what I've been able to understand from those experiences, it's been pretty successful. And you got to understand, people who are homeless. It's reflective of all economic strata. There has been incidents where professional hockey players that made millions of dollars have become addicted to cocaine. They go through all their money and they find themselves on the street. I mean, there's been several examples of that. So there's no one economic group that has a monopoly on being homeless. It can hit us all. I mean, it's true. The famous line, "There by the grace of God go I," right?
Mm-hmm. So, Jeff, I'm going to push back a little bit of this because, again, I think when we have these plans, and I think, Jeff, that you come at it with, like James, with very good intentions and that but at the end of the day, we've got to come up with dollars and cents.
That's right.
How do we end up paying for a process like this where, like, again, myself, I was kind of briefly talking with you before, and the profiteers, those who follow, kind of have a rough idea of what I do. My tax bill a year is about $25,000 on my properties.
It's significant.
It's significant. Mm-hmm. So if you're coming to me and you're going to say, I'm going to increase your taxes 5-6% over the next 5 or 6 years, I'm going to go, whoa, obviously. And I'm going to go, what is the most efficient and effective methodology to solve a problem, but not where we're, robbing Peter to pay Paul, where I'm Peter, right? So that's where I'm, from a business perspective, we're trying to increase the opportunity for individuals wanting to come to the area. We have to be able to do that through appropriate tax structures, but we want to have these social programs as well. How does that marry in for Jeff Leal, the future mayor of Peterborough?
Well, Patrick, you'll remember the famous Fram oil commercial, oil filter, pay me now or pay me later.
Right.
I think I think an investment up front. If we investment in an individual, got the individual on the road to recovery, and then I believe everybody has an ability. Everybody has an ability to make a contribution, and I think we should look at it from that approach. Let me tell you an interesting story. When I served on Peterborough City Council from 1985 until 2003, when I got elected to the legislature. So in the late 80s, it's still here today, AmeriCredit came to Peterborough.
Right.
We, at the city of Peterborough, there were about 120 people that were on Ontario Works. Our manager of employment services, wonderful lady named Deb Keating, then she went on to work with Fleming College and retired. She put those individuals through a pre-employment training program, got them ready for a job. They went to work at AmeriCredit, got into a routine of getting to work at 8:30 in the morning, putting in a hard day's work, and it got them into, for want of a better way, a daily routine.
Right.
Look, those are hard jobs. Anybody that spends your day calling people who are delinquent on car loans is something I could never do.
Right.
But those people hung in, got experience, either stayed at AmeriCredit or used that as a launching pad for something else. So that's the way I kind of look at this situation.
I think
will you be 100% successful? No. Will it take some investment? Yes. But I think the long-term societal benefit will be there. Just my view.
I think you're bang on, Jeff. I think that's a very interesting perspective, and I've never actually heard it put that way.
Yeah, and you got to be. Look, you're right, Patrick. You're a business guy, and you're in the rental field,
right?
So you have to work with rent controls and things like that. But I mean, when your costs go up, ultimately a portion gets passed on to somebody else. Exactly. That's the reality, right? Well, and I think you have to be very cognizant of that.
Right. And I think that's where we are. Like I'm looking down, the next 2-3 years with inflation the way we are, with interest rates that are coming, with kind of what we've talked a little bit before, Jeff, in regards to like the global supply chain issues.
That's right.
I think that there's both, headwinds and tailwinds that are before the city of Peterborough.
I would agree.
And with that being said, if we are in a situation where we can utilize Trent University, utilize Fleming College, being able to draw on those partnerships. And Jeff, you have an experience in doing this. And I feel like some of the other candidates, when I watched the debate the other night, it very much seems like a 2-horse race. And the plans that are coming down, your record you're able to stand on, whereas some of the other parties are a little less known in the community. As someone who's been in politics for a long time, you understand the unknown horse in a race sometimes can have opportunities handed to them. What do you think your experience and your legacy in Peterborough is going to give you as an opportunity?
Well, I think, I've had the ability to work with others, and I think that's important. I think, bringing people together in common cause and, have respect for all opinions. I happen to think that Peterborough is at a unique point in our history. If we don't make some decisions now, we're going to have some challenges down the road. And I have some international experience. I led a trade mission to India and China, 3 rounds of NAFTA renegotiation, final round of TPP. So I've had the opportunity to kind of get a glimpse of what is occurring around the world and what potential that I certainly see here in Peterborough.
I know you said that you have a time constraint. I love the fact that you came. I love the fact that you talked to us. I hope that we can talk to you again, whenever you have the time. I know that you wanted to keep this short because you've been so kind to come on our show, and I really appreciate it. So the way we end, though, Jeff, is that we always kind of say our little spiel, and then at the end we have these sign-offs. So I have a sign-off, Pat has a sign-off, and then we always get our guests to say words of wisdom, whatever they want, to, just a couple of words to give the profiteers out there how you feel about advice or whatever. So I'm going to do that now, and then Pat will go, and then it'll be all yours. And Jeff, I've known you for quite a while, and you know what? I have always admired all of the stuff you've done for Peterborough behind the scenes. Not a lot of people know what you have done to make Peterborough the success it is. And I think you're absolutely right. I think Peterborough is at that pivot point right now. We have to make some very hard decisions, both for business, but also for mental health and addiction and stuff like that. And, I may be biased, but I think that you would be the right man for the job with your wealth of experience and the way you lead a team, and just the knowledge you have to already get us ahead of some of the problems that maybe some of the other candidates would not foresee. And with that, profiteers, thank you very much. This week, we're going to talk to a young lady named Patty, and she's going to talk us through the tiny homes and also about her psychology practice, among other things.
Oh, good.
And as always, let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together.
Jeff, again, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Joining us today, taking your time. Fantastic. You've answered my questions wholeheartedly, honestly, and with empathy. So I appreciate that. As always, folks, thank you very much. And let's make some money together. And Jeff, this is where we stick you with that final word of wisdom.
Yeah.
I always believe that our young people should be able to seek their destiny right here in Peterborough if they so choose.